two people die?
One fell off a bridge, another one died.
One fell off a bridge? Wouldn't that be an accident?
Aye.
What happened?
Fell off a bridge.
Were you there when you fell off the bridge?
Aye.
How'd the other one die?
The other one just died, didn't he? He choked.
On his food? So
No.
basically you threw somebody off a bridge and you choked somebody to death.
Aye.
Glasgow's Ibrox and Govan streets have seen their fair share of hard men, but none like Christopher Hutcherson. A low-level dealer with a violent temper, he wanted to rise above the rest, to be feared, to be remembered. Inspired by gangster films and consumed by ego, he started living the life he saw on screen. But what began as an act soon spiraled into real bloodshed, brutal murders that would shock even the city's toughest streets. Welcome to Crime Pulse, where we unravel the UK's darkest criminal sagas. If you're new, smash that subscribe button, like, share, and hit the notification bell to stay locked into every gripping tale and join our community diving deep into the underworld. This is the story of Christopher Hutcherson's brutal reign, leaving a trail of blood and betrayal that still haunts the city. For most folks, gangster flicks like Goodfellas or the Godfather series are just a guilty pleasure, a way to kick back and escape into a world of mobsters and mayhem. But for 23-year-old Christopher Hutcherson, they were far more than harmless entertainment. They were his twisted inspiration, with those ruthless fictional characters serving as his ultimate role models. To him, these films weren't mere movies. They were a chilling blueprint for life, fueling a dark addiction that had him holed up for hours in his Ibrox flat, obsessively re-watching the classics. He even honed his menacing glare by mimicking the icy stare of actor Paul Bettany from Gangster No.1, one of his all-time favorites. Hutcherson would boast, "I will make the front page. I will do something that will go down in history." Just like the brutal thug Bettany portrayed in the 2000 film Gangster No.1, Hutcherson built a crew of terrified associates like Ferguson, who did his bidding out of sheer fear, and mirroring that on-screen menace, he often wielded a small machete to intimidate his network of cowering dealers. His body bore tattoos screaming "thug for life" and "touch of magic," the latter whispering of sinister, satanic undertones that added to his aura of dread. This obsession wasn't just locked away in his mind. It spilled over into a flashy, over-the-top lifestyle he built to echo his cinematic heroes, all while concealing a savage violence that was primed to explode. Christopher Hutcherson was obsessed with living like the gangsters he saw in his favorite movies. He turned his Ibrox flat into a showpiece, filling it with sleek Italian furniture to mimic a mob boss's lair. To look the part, he hit his personal gym every day, building a massive, intimidating physique. He dropped £1,500 on Versace suits from Glasgow city centre, dressing like a movie star gangster. His tattoos, "Thug for Life" and "Touch of Magic," the latter with a creepy, dark twist, showed off his love for the tough guy life. Hutcherson always wanted a gorgeous blonde by his side, just like the slick mobsters he admired. He took girlfriends on fancy trips to Spain and the Canary Islands, snapping photos that screamed gangster glamour. He also made regular trips to Blackpool to get his tattoos, adding to his bad boy image. A former friend said, "Hutch loved having pretty blondes around and could be charming when he wanted. He lived like he thought a gangster should, with glamorous women, big holidays, and fast cars." But behind the flashy clothes and charm, Hutcherson had a vicious side that scared everyone around him, ruining relationships and leaving a trail of fear. By his early 20s, he'd become a notorious drug dealer and hardman in Ibrox and Govan, rough neighborhoods packed with both. Like the movie gangsters he copied, he made sure everyone knew that crossing him, even family, would come with a brutal price. That hunger for control and fear drove him to commit horrific acts, turning his movie star dreams into a nightmare that shocked Glasgow's underworld. Christopher Hutcherson was dead set on proving he was as tough as the movie gangsters he worshipped. When two men owed him money for drugs, one a mere £350, he saw it as a chance to send a clear message. Nobody crosses him, not even family, like his cousin Daniel Hutcherson. We'll get to that. His first known victim was John Mitchell, a homeless man who owed that small sum. In September 2001, Hutcherson turned his Ibrox flat into a nightmare scene. He started by stabbing Mitchell in the leg, then spent nearly 12 hours tormenting him, pausing to savor the cruelty. He crushed Mitchell's hands with a heavy dumbbell bar, each swing deliberate, and poured scalding water over them, leaving the terrified man in agony, gasping for mercy. After this brutal ordeal, Hutcherson forced Mitchell into a car, the silence in the vehicle heavy, and drove to a lonely bridge in Strathaven, South Lanarkshire. There, with a cold shove, he sent Mitchell off the edge to his death. Later, Hutcherson callously mocked how Mitchell didn't even scream as he fell, his voice dripping with pride, showing no hint of remorse. At first, police thought it was suicide, but a post-mortem revealed injuries that didn't add up, the truth screaming through the wounds. This sparked a full-blown murder investigation, slowly unraveling Hutcherson's vicious world. This cold-blooded killing was only the start, as Hutcherson's hunger for revenge and control, growing darker by the day, soon led him to a crime even more shocking. Just weeks after his first killing, in November 2001, Christopher Hutcherson turned his rage on his own cousin, Daniel Hutcherson, a 23-year-old former soldier. This wasn't about a small drug debt like before, it was personal. Hutcherson blamed Daniel and his father for getting his beloved brother hooked on drugs, a habit that led to his death. The pain of watching his brother die in his arms left Hutcherson with a deep, unhealed wound. He later told a friend he also just fancied going further to see what it was like, hinting at a chilling curiosity for violence. He lured Daniel to his Ibrox flat again, where his young associate, Andrew Ferguson, stood by. There, Hutcherson wrapped a rope around Daniel's neck and strangled him, even dunking his head in water several times to make sure he was gone. What happened next horrified even seasoned criminals. Hutcherson cut off Daniel's head and, with Ferguson, allegedly kicked it around like a football. He reportedly kept the head, which was never found, on his flat's mantelpiece for 2 days, treating it like a twisted trophy. For days after, Hutcherson sat drinking by an oil drum in a tenement garden, slowly burning Daniel's body piece by piece. He stuffed the head, wrapped in a bin bag, into the same fire. To cover his tracks, he scattered the remains across 4 locations, including under the Erskine Bridge on the River Clyde. He and Ferguson even went clubbing the night before the dismemberment, trying to craft an alibi to dodge suspicion. These gruesome acts couldn't stay hidden forever, as a chance discovery unraveled Hutcherson's carefully constructed alibi and brought police to his door. 5 months after Daniel Hutcherson went missing, in November 2001, a shocking discovery tore the case wide open. In April 2002, 2 rabbit hunters in the Scottish countryside came across a reeking black bin bag wrapped tightly in a tent and sheet. When one cut it open with a knife, the overpowering stench made them reel. Inside were Daniel's remains, hidden away to avoid detection. The horrified hunters called the police, launching a full-scale investigation that shook Glasgow. Soon after, more body parts washed up in the River Clyde, confirming a savage murder. The evidence pointed straight to Christopher Hutcherson, Daniel's own cousin, whose brutal reputation in Ibrox and Govan made him an obvious suspect, already locked up for a 4-year drug-dealing sentence. Hutcherson didn't need chasing down. Detectives charged him with murder right from his prison cell, his family tie to Daniel raising red flags. They also turned their sights on Andrew Ferguson, Hutcherson's 19-year-old accomplice, sensing he might be the weak link. Their hunch paid off when Ferguson, eaten up by guilt, walked into a police station and spilled every gruesome detail of the killing in Hutcherson's flat. His confession, alongside the chilling evidence of Daniel's scattered remains, built an airtight case, dismantling the gangster image Hutcherson had crafted. In March 2003, Christopher Hutcherson and Andrew Ferguson faced justice at Glasgow's High Court. Hutcherson was already locked up, serving a 4-year stretch for drug dealing, but now he answered for murder. Witnesses lined up to testify against him, a crowd that would have been too scared to speak out before. It was clear Hutcherson had plenty of enemies, but hardly any friends. His 19-year-old accomplice, Ferguson, turned on him in the dock, his guilt driving him to confess everything to the police earlier. Another man, originally charged with helping dispose of Daniel's body, had his charges dropped in exchange for testifying, adding to the case against Hutcherson. Witnesses painted a chilling picture of his cruelty. One man recalled Hutcherson storming into his home, waving a crossbow, and threatening to kill him and his wife over an unpaid debt. He broke down, begging for his life, but Hutcherson still shot him. The man's wife scrambled to borrow money from her grandmother to pay part of the debt, but Hutcherson wasn't done. Around the time of Daniel's murder, he and Ferguson dragged the same man into a car, drove him to Dontosha near Glasgow, and beat him until he screamed he was finished. Another witness, a drug runner for Hutcherson, told how he was taken to a wasteland, had a gun shoved in his mouth, and was beaten bloody with a rope around his neck. He thought he was a goner, but Hutcherson let him go, leaving him terrified. Derek Scanlon, a 22-year-old electrician, shared a haunting story. Called to Hutcherson's Ibrox flat out of the blue in late 2001, he laughed when Hutcherson claimed he'd killed Daniel until he was told to check the bathroom. There, he saw Daniel's body, fully clothed, lying in the bathtub. Scared stiff, Scanlon returned the next day, forced to stand lookout, while Hutcherson and another man loaded Daniel's dismembered torso, wrapped in a tent, into a car. The remains were later stuffed into 6 rubbish bags and carted off in a wheelbarrow after being burned in an oil drum. Scanlon told the court he only stayed out of fear, saying, "There was nothing else I could have done. Something could have happened to me. Christopher had the power over people. If he said it, you did it. I was ashamed of myself." Ferguson's testimony was the most damning. He described how Hutcherson casually showed him Daniel's body in the bathtub before they cut it up. He watched Hutcherson tie a rope around Daniel's neck, pulling until blood dripped from his nose, and mocked his cousin's dying expression, even forcing others to describe it. When prosecutor Norman Ritchie asked Ferguson if it was evil to watch someone die, he replied, "No. It's evil to do it. I didn't. It's not okay to watch, but nobody could stand up to Chris. Anyone there would have done the same." Ferguson admitted helping dismember Daniel's body, but denied burning or scattering the remains. When accused of pinning it all on Hutcherson, he said, "No, I'm just a mug telling the truth." He claimed he was coerced, too scared to defy Hutcherson, and said Daniel told him before dying, "I know if you could help me, you would." Every witness agreed on one thing. Hutcherson was a violent psychopath, capable of killing anyone who crossed him. After a 3-week trial at Glasgow's High Court in March 2003, the jury needed just 4 hours to deliver their verdict. Overwhelmed by the mountain of evidence against Christopher Hutcherson and Andrew Ferguson, Hutcherson was found guilty of the murders of John Mitchell and Daniel Hutcherson, earning 2 life sentences with a minimum of 25 years before parole. He was also convicted of attempted murder and several brutal assaults. Ferguson, only 19, was guilty too. Sentenced to life in a young offenders institution with at least 17 years to serve. In his closing remarks, Judge Lord Brackadell told the jury the evidence was clear, with multiple witnesses proving both men worked together to kill Daniel. He said, "There's enough proof from different sources to show these two acted as a team in Daniel Hutcherson's murder. It doesn't matter who tied the rope. Deciding if you believe the evidence is up to you." Before sentencing, Lord Brackadell called their crimes barbarous acts, laying out their horror. He described how Hutcherson stabbed John Mitchell, tortured him for a day, then threw him off a remote Strathaven bridge without a second thought. 3 months later, he and Ferguson killed Daniel, dumped his body in a bathtub, and after a night of clubbing, bought a saw, bin bags, gloves, and cable ties from B&Q to dismember him in a tenement garden. Everyone who heard this case was shaken, the judge said, and people everywhere will be horrified by such savage acts in their city. When the verdicts hit, the courtroom erupted. Daniel's mother, Lorraine O'Connor, lunged toward Hutcherson as he was led to the cells, screaming abuse until police held her back. Outside, she declared, "Short of the death penalty, justice is done. He should burn in hell." Meanwhile, Ferguson's family stood firm, shouting his innocence as court officers escorted his supporters out amid the chaos. Through it all, Hutcherson remained ice cold, his face twisted into a smirk during some of the most harrowing testimonies, as if the pain he caused was a joke. When the crowd cheered the guilty verdicts, he clapped along, reveling in the attention like the gangster he thought he was. Word later spread that, in a fit of rage, he turned on Ferguson in the cells, attacking him for spilling the damning truth that sealed their fates. Even after 2 life sentences, Hutcherson showed no shred of guilt. In chilling letters from prison, he boasted that his murders were more brutal than those of other killers, cementing his image as a remorseless psychopath who thrived on the terror he inflicted. Even from his cell, Christopher Hutcherson burned with rage against Andrew Ferguson for testifying against him in 2003. Locked up in HMP shots, he put a £4,000 bounty, or an ounce of heroin, on Ferguson's head, offering it to any inmate willing to take him out in the prison's protection wing, where Ferguson hid after snitching. In 2010, a hitman slashed Ferguson's neck, a brutal attack allegedly ordered by Hutcherson, who was pulling strings from another cell block. A prison source whispered, "Everyone knows Hutcherson has cash, so payment's no issue. If nobody gets Ferguson inside, he's got pals outside waiting for his 2011 home leave to finish the job." But Hutcherson wasn't untouchable. In July 2012, at HMP Kilmarnock, 2 rivals, fed up with his drug dealing inside, tore a 42-inch TV off a second-floor wall and dropped it on his head as he passed below. Blood poured from his cracked skull. The attack meant to kill, over a turf war where Hutcherson kept pushing smack. Miraculously called a flesh wound, it showed the chaos he stirred even behind bars. Known as a total maniac, he's feared by many inmates, but has enemies just as fierce, outranking him in the prison pecking order. Experts tried to unpack what made Hutcherson so vicious. In a post-trial interview, Dr. Richard Haynes from Stirling University said, "Violent types like him thrive on cruelty, whether in movies or real life. He didn't turn violent from watching films," Haynes explained. "He was already wired that way, but flicks like Gangster No.1 fed his hunger. That sadistic streak was always there. The movies just kept it burning." Others agreed, while gangster films shaped his fantasies, his real fuel was grief and vengeance. Over his brother's drug, overdose death, he twisted those movies into a playbook for his own bloody rampage. A young woman who knew both men spoke up days after the trial, revealing Hutcherson's obsession with Gangster No.1. "He was hooked on gangster movies," she said. "He'd boast, 'I'll hit the front page, I'll make history.' Unlike other thugs, he meant every word." Hutcherson never became the slick mobster he dreamed of. He turned into something far uglier, a remorseless killer. He got his wish to make history, but not for glory. He left only fear, pain, and questions that may never be answered. The brutal murders of John Mitchell and Daniel Hutcherson left a trail of devastation, ripping apart families and leaving wounds that may never heal. Daniel's mother, Lorraine O'Connor, was shattered by the loss of her son, killed by his own cousin, in a betrayal that cut deeper than any knife. The horror of learning Daniel's body was dismembered and scattered, his head never found, haunted her, a nightmare no mother could bear. John Mitchell's family, too, faced unbearable loss. A homeless man with little, he was tortured and thrown off a bridge, over a mere £350 debt, his life snuffed out without mercy. The ripple effects of his violence touched countless others in Ibrox and Govan, where fear of his name lingered long after his conviction. For both families, the scars of Hutcherson's barbaric acts remain, a reminder of a monster who turned their lives into a real-life horror story. If this chilling case gripped you, dive deeper into the darkest corners of true crime with Crime Pulse. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and join our growing community to uncover more stories that shock and haunt, because the truth is always worth chasing.